Okay, before we actually start this video, I'd just like to say that my laptop froze several times when I was recording this, causing quite a few sections of the recording to be corrupted. So heads up that future Kyla will be appearing a lot in this video. For the next time I'm filming for a long time in my room, I'll use my service to hopefully prevent that happening. Anyway, on to the video! And I'm back! So hey guys, it's been quite a while once again, and you probably already know the answer why, but yep. It's the end of the year, so had quite a few tests and assignments, and then, family came up to visit, and overall it's just been pretty hectic for the past month or so. So I didn't really have any time to film this video until now, so I think it's maybe coming a bit late for this year's MMI, but hopefully this information is useful for the future years. So my original plan for this video was to talk about, first what the MMI actually was and how it worked, and then my advice and experience on it. But I guess I was too slow because the university's already made a video on what the MMI is and how it works. So you guys should just watch the university's video on what the MMI is and how it works if you're not very sure on it. I don't really see any point in me making one when they've already done it, literally for this year, and they had all these nice animations to help you understand the process. So instead, for this video, I will just focus more on my own advice of what I'd give and recommend to people, and as well as my experience. I guess for starters, I want to talk about, a bit about why they do the MMI in the first place. So I have talked about it in some of my previous videos that the MMI is essentially the last component for pretty much all the clinical programs here in the University of Auckland when they consider your overall, position and if you will get into the program of your choice. A lot of people haven't done an MMI before, so it really is, the first time for a lot of people. And, the question is, why do they choose to do an MMI compared to just a normal interview? For the MMI, you have 8 different stations. And so at each station, you have a different interviewer. And so the whole, concept behind it is, if you don't do well at one station, when you move on to the next station, that new interviewer doesn't know how well you performed in the previous one. So it's basically a clean slate. You can start fresh, and for that, a lot of people, that's really a good feeling. If you screwed up early on in the old format where it was just 2 interviewers for the whole interview, it might have been very difficult to recover and improve your impression with them. The MMI essentially gives you multiple chances and tries to reduce the effects of bias, so one screw up won't necessarily affect your final outcome. The MMI as well, the whole purpose as well, probably just like an interview, is just to see your personality and how you would deal with certain situations. They're basically looking for qualities that they would expect to see in a health professional. I'm pretty sure they list the qualities that they look for on their website. There's 14 of them, and I'll just put them here, I guess. And basically, for every station, they will be looking for 3 of these qualities. You don't know which of the 3 qualities that they are looking for in that specific station. So, it's a good idea to have them in the back of your mind or understand the whole reason and purpose behind the interview. Another thing is, for every interview time slot, so, it's not just going to be you who's doing the interview at once. It's going to be 8 other interviewees also going around. For every station, you guys will all have the same questions, but you will have different qualities that you're being assessed on per question. So, I don't know if that was a bit confusing, but essentially, if you had one question, let's say you have the acting station, and, you do the acting thing, and they're looking for 3 certain qualities. The next person that comes in will have the exact same actor with the exact same scenario, but they may be assessed on 3 different qualities. Neither of you will know, but it's just something to consider and remember, I guess. Okay, so now I'll just give you some advice. As a previous person who has sat there, MMI, I guess my main advice is just to prepare. It is actually something you can prepare for. It's not just a complete guessing game or something that's out of the blue. Like, they give you the qualities and that they're looking for. And, when you ask previous students who've done the MMI themselves, and practice some questions yourself, you'll start to notice that the sort of questions that they ask and then the things they want you to say for each question. So while I'm not telling you to memorize like a response for every single potential question, you can definitely have certain points that you have already thought of. So when you actually come to the interview under a stressful situation, it's much easier for these points just to come up to the top of your head. So some of the best examples I can think of are, questions about Māori or rural health. For both of them, they're usually looking for certain points that are relevant pretty much every year. So the question would usually ask you something along the lines of the significance between Māori health or rural health compared to, Europeans or urbanized areas. And so it's really important that you understand the differences between them, potential causes of that, ways that we could potentially have a solution for them, and things that are already set in place. So, for Māori health, you'd pretty much, Māori health, I would say, talk about the Treaty of Waitangi. So, definitely know about the acts and, how those affect the health of Māori people. And then, you'd probably talk about the MAPA scheme and then the RAS scheme for rural health. So these are just some of my pointers and ideas that you can think of when you're thinking of some points to answering these sort of questions. I would definitely say, particularly for rural health questions, that they're usually quite repetitive. I'm not saying, again, don't memorize a script or anything, but know the main points and you can apply it to most of the questions that they will ask you. Yeah, I guess another thing that's important as well is knowing or being at least aware of the current hot health topics that are of discussion in New Zealand. So I'm just going to give examples that in recent years, things like measles, the junior doctor strike, the nurse strike, e-scooters, vaping, all of these things are often discussed in the news recently and have some significant impact on all health professionals. So it's really important, I guess, that you're generally aware of some and maybe, people's opinions and all that. So you can understand, maybe if they ask you a question about the advantages and disadvantages, that you can see both sides and you already know these things because you've read about it yourself already. So, it's not in those 2 minutes you're just racking your brain for some sort of ideas of things you could talk about. And even those ones are, again, those are just suggestions. I know apparently in the past they did a question on Pokemon Go, so you really don't know what they will ask you. Some people recommend, going on news websites and then reading the health section for kind of health topics. I personally didn't do that. It's totally up to you if you want to. But for me, I just discussed with some friends, what sort of things do you think they can bring up? And those are the kind of ones we thought of. Another thing is that they aren't going to ask you lots of things with medical terminology. Often the questions may appear long, but just have a general idea and they try and give you enough information with the question so that even if you haven't heard of it before, you can come up with your own conclusion based on what's been given. Other things you can prepare would also be some life examples of different situations that you've faced and what you've learned from them. You'll definitely get some questions that will ask something about you, yourself. When was a time where I experienced a conflict? Or when was a time where I showed leadership or could have shown leadership? And then the significant part afterwards is, so what did you learn from that? Or why is that significant in this question? And that would, lead into things about, as a health professional, you will probably deal with a lot of conflict throughout your life, or, have to lead a team, and how these experiences where you have dealt with these things and you've proven that you have certain qualities and that they will be useful for the future as a health professional. And other things is also, personality things for health professionals. So I think I don't know if it was my real one or just a practice, but I think one of my questions was name 3 qualities you think you have that are relevant as a health professional. So that's an example right there. And it was even in the question itself asking how my personal experiences my personal qualities were related or relevant as a health professional. I think those are like the main kind of things you can prepare for. And then other ones as well as just ultimately for all the questions, just go over them with friends or family. I honestly think that's one of the best things you can do. So yeah, like writing points, I would recommend that for sure. Definitely do that. But what you should do afterwards would probably be to talk to a friend or a family member and just say it aloud, because it's quite different when you write points or just think it up in your head compared to saying it aloud. The more you say it aloud, the easier it becomes. And so when it comes to the interview, it comes out more naturally, and you're able to communicate your ideas more effectively. So again, I wouldn't say memorize anything, but once you have your main points, you know what you're trying to explain or show to the interviewer, and then you will find the right words that you will usually use to portray that idea. I would also say to try go to any like mock MMI kind of things. So I know that if you go to any of the first year university accommodation, you have past mentors there, and they are likely to organise a mock MMI for you. And there's the Women in Health Network, they also organise one, and Niche also does one. They usually occur around September to early November, so it kind of really depends when the semester ends. They're really beneficial as they simulate the MMI so you can understand and practice what it's like going from station to station. They also allow you to practice it with someone who's been through it before, so they can give you feedback on what to do and improve for next time. So on the day, I'm sure you would be very nervous, and I also was. I think I was, because they do the interviews over maybe a week or so, and I think I was near the middle or end of the interviews, and it can be scary. I went through it myself as well, and you're just thinking about what sort of questions that they could ask you, and if you're really gonna do well or if you're gonna screw it up. But I think once you actually get into it, at least for me, all those worries kind of went away because I just didn't have time to think about them. When you are answering questions, just try and stay calm. If you're someone, like I know I talk quite fast, it can be quite hard to remember to be clear with what you're saying and to talk at a reasonable pace. Yeah, try and maintain eye contact with the interviewer. You may be someone who uses hand gestures. Just, again, this is something you can practice with family, friends, and the mock MMIs, how you are actually physically kind of presenting your ideas and like how you communicate non-verbally as well, because that's pretty much just as important as the stuff you say. Another thing as well, along the lines of being audible and not talking too fast, is also just to pause or even stop talking. So it's really easy to, if you don't really know what to say, that you keep kind of rambling on or, just trying to get something out. And that can result in some incoherent sentences or you just going completely off track. And, like the interviewers, they're there not to drag you or anything. Like they want you to do well. And so they have a piece of paper as well with the question, but they probably also have follow-up questions. Actually, it's pretty much guaranteed that they have some follow-up question of some sort. So I would recommend, if you're getting stuck, just stop talking and they will probably give you a follow-up question or just ask you something that will help guide you towards the sort of answer that they're looking for. Yeah, because one thing is if you end up talking for the whole 6 minutes, that would give no opportunity for them to ask you a follow-up question, and that follow-up question might have actually been quite a crucial thing to the whole answer. Yeah, so follow-up questions are just really good as something as well, just to make sure that you are on the right track of, what you're talking about. And I guess it's like anything, it's probably better to be short and concise than long and rambly. I know myself, I'm guilty of just, going off complete tangents of things because I don't know what else to say. Even if you do bad at one station, try your best not to dwell on it. Just do your best and keep focusing on what's to come and try not to let the previous responses affect your future ones. So when you get the question, you've got 2 minutes to read it and also kind of start thinking about what you'll say. So in those 2 minutes, I'd recommend reading the question, obviously, but also to, think of some points of that you will talk about. So, for example, if I do more like one of the logical reasoning or ethical kind of based ones, you may pick your stance. Like, okay, for this example, let's say, should e-cigarettes be banned in workplaces? And, I think one of the first things would be to think of your overall point that you want to say. And so for this one, maybe I would be thinking, yes, I think they should be banned. And then from that, you can have, some points that build on that. So, have 2 different reasons, and then a third one could be like, I can see how, other people may consider that they shouldn't be banned because of these reasons, but ultimately, I still think that they should be, or something along those lines. So, again, it's good to kind of plan out your answer. I know that, again, that can be hard as well, but the best way to get better at that is through practice. And, maybe you aren't as much of a planner and you're more just like a freestyle person, and that's totally fine as well. Like, I think for me, I felt like I could think of maybe 1 or 2 points, but afterwards I was just thinking of my wording, and that the rest kind of flowed on afterwards when I was like in there with the interviewer. So you've just got to figure out, yes, what works for you. Yeah, so overall, the interview does go really fast. So at least for me, I found it went by quite fast. Once I exited the door of one station, I was already like, headspace was ready for the next question, and just door after door. I didn't think of how many questions were left until the guy, my student helper, was like, it's the last question. I was like, whoa, that actually went by so fast. So yeah, don't worry guys. I think it does go faster than you realise, because at the time, you aren't really thinking of the time. You're just thinking of, the task that's placed in front of you. And afterwards, you should just celebrate. You're officially done with probably your first year of uni, or you've completed a degree, and both of those are really great achievements. Try not to dwell on it and just enjoy your summer, because, the results usually don't come out for another month or so, and all you can really do is wait. I'm sure you probably did better than you realised. Hey guys, so I'm actually filming this part of the video quite a few weeks after the first stuff. So I was actually helping with the MMIs this year, and through that I actually noticed a few other things that I thought I should probably also mention in this video. So I guess these are some more of the other things, particularly for the day, that you might want to remember. So on the day, you just go to a desk where you have to sign in. There will be a student helper there, and they will ask you to show them a form of photographic ID. So that doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's an ID of some sort. Afterwards, the student helper will usually tell you about the waiting room, which is normally just behind them, so that's a place you can wait before your actual interview. And there's usually some other student helpers in there which are there to hang out with you and just, keep you company, relieve any of that stress you have. You'll later get paired up with another student helper who will go around with you during your interview, and so they're going to be the ones that help you get to one room to another and, carry your stuff and give you a drink of water if you need it. So one bit of advice I have is to follow your student helper the whole time whenever you leave a room and go to the next, because some of the rooms have a bit of a walk between them, and you don't want to end up sitting at the wrong seat with the wrong question that you're not actually up to yet. So it's a good idea just to follow them. Even though it is quite of a walk, don't feel like you need to run or anything, because everyone's going to get to that station. They're all going to have to experience that walk. So you ultimately all have the same amount of time for reading the question. And like I said earlier, 2 minutes is actually quite a long time to read, so you don't have to worry about not finishing in time. Another big thing people may also wonder is what to wear for your interview. I don't know exactly what the email says, but probably say something to be formal, and that is true, but it's probably not as formal as you think it is. So particularly for guys, you don't necessarily have to wear a full-on suit and tie. Just wearing a nice shirt without a tie is fine as well. For girls, like a white shirt or blouse with black pants is always the safe route. But, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can wear something that's a bit more colourful. It may even help, make you stand out a little bit more compared to everyone else. So yeah, it is formal, but, you don't have to go all out or anything. It's totally up to you what you really wear. So after the MMI, there's also the whole VCA thing. They probably talk about it within the email as well. But the VCA thing is like the Vulnerable Children's Act. And so it's just going to see if, that you can work with children or other vulnerable people. And so this is the one where you have to bring in the documents and stuff. So after your MMI, your student helper says bye to you, and then you just follow another person who will take you into one of the rooms where you, I think, spend 15 minutes filling in this questionnaire. It's not that bad. I think it's just questions along the lines of, your experiences with children or other, more vulnerable individuals, or how you deal with certain situations. Now, it's not something you study for or anything. It's just something just to be aware of. And then once you have those 15 minutes over, you will leave the room, and one of the helpers will call people's names in to be interviewed by the people. These interviews, again, they're pretty chill. It's nothing to be worried about. The hard part was the actual MMI. This bit's just something you've got to get done through as well. Once you finish that little interview, which again is just things like your experiences and what you do in certain situations, you will leave the room, and that's when you hand in your documents to the student helpers. These are the documents they tell you to fill in the email. And one of the things I noticed when I was helping at the VCA station was that, in the email it tells you to bring a primary and a secondary form of ID. It's really important that you actually bring both, not just one of them. A few students came by and they only had secondary forms of ID. And the issue is we can't completely sign off the document with that. So, what happens is then you have to go back to the student centre later with a primary form of ID. Just to clarify, I guess it's in the email as well, but a primary form of ID is something like a New Zealand birth certificate, New Zealand citizenship, or a passport. They all have to be valid, so passport can't be expired. And then the secondary forms could be things like your driver's license, university student ID, and stuff like that. So it's fine if you bring 2 primary IDs, but you can't bring just 2 secondary IDs. And they can't be photocopies either. They need to see the physical copy. So yeah, it isn't the end of the world if you can only bring your secondary IDs on the day of the interview, but it just means you have a little bit more work to do afterwards. Once you hand in all those documents and stuff, you're actually good to go, and you've officially finished the whole interview process. Yeah, so I think that's it. I'm just trying to think of my own experience. I've kind of talked about it already, but for me, I did find it pretty good. There were no questions that I felt really bad afterwards, or maybe I just didn't have time to process what was happening, so, I'm not really sure. All my friends who did it as well, they didn't find it that bad either. I think sometimes we just make it seem a lot scarier in our heads, and we don't realize what we're capable of. So as long as you, do some preparations and stay calm on the day, I think you'll do well. So I'm wishing everyone, for this year and all the future years as well, all the best with the interview, and hopefully you get the outcome that you want. But yeah, again, if you got any more specific questions on the MMI, just let me know, and I'll try and answer them as always, either in the comments or in a video. Other than that, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!